We've made a lot of headway talking about our barbell prescription for aging adults. If you haven't seen our videos on the squat prescription or the deadlift prescription, please go back and take a look. Now it's time to move from the lower body to the upper body, at least nominally. As we've seen, the squat and the deadlift aren't strictly lower body exercises, and the same goes for the next two movements in our barbell prescription. Today, we're going to talk about a powerful exercise that's misunderstood, much maligned, incredibly powerful and healthy, and underutilized. We're going to talk about the standing overhead press, or as we prefer to call it, the press. Hi, I'm Jonathon Sullivan and welcome back to Gray Steel. Let's start where we started with the squat and the deadlift. What exactly is a press? A press is a movement in which a load is pushed away from the body. So, in a leg press, you push a load away from your center with your legs. In general, however, press refers to a load in the hands, which you then push away. Most people will think of a bench press, in which a load is pushed away from the chest. We'll cover the bench press soon because it's an important exercise. But we don't think the bench is quite as important as the overhead press. Sure, the bench allows more weight to be lifted, but it's just not quite as comprehensive and doesn't hit quite as many fitness attributes. That's because the press has a longer range of motion, demands greater mobility, and is performed standing, heavily recruiting the abdominal and lower body musculature, and training the critical faculties of balance and proprioception. There are, of course, variants of the press. And because the press demands more shoulder mobility than some people have in their sixth or even fifth decade, we sometimes have to prescribe one of these variants or substitute another standing upper body exercise in its place, at least temporarily. Of all the exercises in our barbell prescription, this is the one that is most often, in its standard form, inaccessible to a minority of athletes. We'll talk about how we get around this, and we do get around it in future episodes. For now, we'll focus on our standard approach to the overhead press in the starting strength system. In what we call the press 1.0, we stand up straight and tall, feet about shoulder width apart, barbell seated in the lower part of the palm, thumbs around, elbows just in front of the bar, forearms parallel. Then, we simply lift the bar straight up overhead and lock it out directly over the shoulder joint, shrugging vigorously. In the press 2.0, which usually comes later in training as the bar gets heavier, we add a body movement, which not only allows us to lift more weight, but also increases recruitment of the abdominal, back, and lower body musculature. Remember, we're not trying to instruct you in the press or any of these exercises in this prescription series. Our purpose is to show you why you should be doing these exercises as part of a lifelong training program. You definitely want to read Rippetoe's Starting Strength, watch these videos, and find yourself a good coach. And here at Gray Steel, we'll have future videos on how to refine, perfect, and if necessary, modify the press to suit your individual training needs. The press describes a long range of motion and recruits a large volume of muscle tissue. When performed properly, the press uses not just the shoulder muscles and triceps, but also the pecs and forearm muscles, the huge trapezius muscles around the scapulae and upper back, the stabilizing muscles of the trunk, the spinal erectors, glutes, quads, hams, and calves. It's a total body exercise, building upper body and particularly shoulder strength, shoulder mobility, and balance. By allowing us to recruit a ton of muscle into a large effective range of motion to move a bunch of weight, it meets our strength training exercise selection criteria. The press is also perfect for our exercise medicine prescription criteria. It's safe. Like the squat and the deadlift, it's just a normal human movement pattern loaded with a barbell. Lifting something heavy overhead is an everyday demand for useful human beings. As is always the case when it comes to barbell exercises, there are jillions of misinformed people who will tell you that the press is dangerous. The most common libel directed at the press is that it will destroy your shoulders by causing them to impinge. Shoulder impingement is a situation in which soft tissue, particularly the tendons of the rotator cuff, become compressed, irritated, inflamed, or injured as they pass through the narrow subacromial space, beneath the acromion of the shoulder. Anything that narrows this space can predispose to impingement, and that includes certain movement patterns. The overhead press, performed properly with healthy shoulders, is not such a movement pattern. That's because when we press overhead, the bar is held up by the hands, which are held up by the arms, which are held up by the scapulae or shoulder blades, which are held up by the traps, which rotate the scapulae into a position to support the load. This rotation of the scapulae is a critical component of what we call the active shoulder. The rotation of the scapulae prevents the dreaded impingement by maintaining a functional angle between the humerus and the scapulae and keeping the subacromial space open. Lifting your arms overhead is not a toxic movement pattern to be avoided. It's a normal and useful movement pattern, and the active shoulder is a natural part of it. We can and do make the active shoulder stronger and more efficient with a vigorous shrug at the top of the press. But the point is that properly performed presses aren't just safe for your shoulders. They actually protect your shoulders by making them stronger and more mobile, and by reinforcing the active shoulder contribution to the movement pattern. The press has an extremely wide therapeutic window. At Graysteel, we routinely observe people who start out with a 15-pound training bar or even a broomstick, progressing to 70, 90, 100, or even 150 pounds or more. There's nothing that says strong and mobile and healthy and functional like being able to hoist a significant percentage of your body weight over your head. The press is part of how we transform people from old ladies or old men to the people that get asked by old ladies or old men to help them get their luggage into the overhead compartment. The press is comprehensive, hitting all of the fitness attributes, promoting strength, power, balance, stamina, and body composition. It attacks the sick aging phenotype for all the same reasons the squat and the other barbell exercises do. It increases muscle mass, loads the spine and hips to fight bone loss, improves insulin sensitivity, and combats frailty. And the press is simple and efficient. You have to do it right, but the movement pattern can be learned quickly. You take the proper grip, you walk the bar out into a strong stance, stand up tall with elbows in front and wrists straight, and press the bar close to your face, shrugging into lockout. Then put it down and do it again. We'll have more to say about adapting the press to those with mobility or other limitations in future videos. Just about everybody can train some variant of this exercise, improving their power, health, flexibility, and fitness, making them stronger, more useful, and harder to break.